internship, you can apply for 15 opportunities each semester. And then just think about it. If you go through your wildest dreams of working with NASA, how many projects could you just name off the top of your head? Of course, I started with the Curiosity rover. The Mars rover, oh man, I want to work on that. I actually met the lead engineer for that project, so that's what motivated me to do it. That was number one. They were working on the Solar Parker probe. It's this probe that they shot into the sun, and it collects data until it completely melts. And I was like, that would be cool too. At Johnson Space Center in Texas, they were making spacesuits, right? They were 3D printing the couplers for the spacesuits, and the thought is that on orbit, that if they had to replace them, they can 3D print them because they have 3D printers. That's a way of manufacturing in space. I 3D print. I'm holding a 3D printed bizcochito cutter in my hand. That's what I do. And so I was like, oh, I can do that. By number 6, number 7, I was like drawing a blank. I have no idea, and I have to do 15. So I'm just scrolling through, and finally there's one line: plant growth for food production and microgravity. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. I've always grown chili from northern New Mexico, from Espanola. I've grown there in the field. When I went to NMSU, I worked on the green chili destemmer, which is it's a machine that automates the cutting of green chilies. It was like 10 years ago, so it was like a big deal at the time. It was funded by the New Mexico Chili Association to help farmers compete with farmers in Mexico. In Mexico, it's easier for them to have a lot of guys out there picking chili, right? They can afford it. Our farmers have labor laws. They have to pay minimum wage. They can only have so many people out there, which means that it's harder for them to compete. And so what they thought is that they would fund a bunch of students to automate the process of destemming chilies. Literally, they pull it, they pop the top off, and then they send it. It goes to Bueno Foods or wherever it goes. So if you can make a machine that does it, it saves a lot of time. That was my first thing, agricultural engineering. I went to work in Indiana with Cummins diesel engines. They developed these. There's a 42% chance that the diesel engine that's under the semi-truck that passes you is my engine, which is an ISX 15 liter. That year, there was new EPA standards. So any engine that got on the highway had to meet these standards, or they would take your engine off. And that was cool. I developed that engine, but I couldn't imagine doing that for the rest of my life. An engine is an engine, whether it's a lawnmower engine or it's a train one, they all kinds of stuff like that. I was in Indiana. There's this great school there called Purdue University. And like, wow, could you imagine if I could write a thesis at Purdue? One of the awesomest engineering schools on the planet that I could think of. And so I applied and I got an internship there. And I found my research in botanical air filtration, where they were using plants to filter indoor air. They made this duct that connects to the air conditioner. It has trays of plants. When the air conditioner turns on, it pulls the air through the roots, and then phytoremediation holds on to volatile organic compounds, and then the media held on to particles. So it would filter your air, which would have been great during COVID if I was still working on it. But back to the internship application. I got down to plant growth and food production and microgravity, and I was growing plants to filter air, and I go, why not apply for it? I wrote them a little blurb. This is what my research is, blah, blah, blah. Nobody called me back except for Joya Massa from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. She said, Jacob, we're growing plants too, except we're not filtering air. We're growing plants for the astronauts to eat. She said, oh, would you be interested? We're trying to create irrigation systems or hydroponics that don't leak into the space station. Currently, we are growing plants, as you're going to see, but we're using growth media. And that media has to be packed here on Earth, launched up, and then the astronauts grow in it one time before they throw it out and burn it in the atmosphere. It's not sustainable, right? We clean that dirt, we're literally cleaning dirt, it's growth media. It weighs a lot, so you have to pay for that weight to launch it, and then you only use it once. Would it not be great if you could have a hydroponic system that you grow roots into the water? When you harvest it, you just plant another one. You can just keep doing it again. So she was like, we have a water delivery test bed. We think you would be great to work on it. Would you come to Kennedy Space Center for 10 weeks during the summer? And I was like, yes, absolutely. So I went to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and I only had 10 weeks to work there. And I am kind of weird, but they have these tables in the middle where all the engineers and scientists talk, and then they have chairs around the meeting room, and I like to sit outside in the corner. This is me, while the big kids are talking, I like to sit in the back. I just like to hear what they're saying, and then if they say something, then I can catch it, and I heard hash. Hatch. I don't know if you've ever heard when somebody calls your name, you can hear it. Hey, Jacob. I can hear Jacob in my sleep, you know. Same thing's true with Hatch. You know, like, Hatch, Hatch. And I go, Hatch, and they're like, yeah, Jacob, it's this town in southern New Mexico. They have these great peppers. We think it'd be great for space. And did you know of it? I'm like, yeah. I actually went to Las Cruces and the MSU's right there, and they're like, oh, that's great. So we had this big discussion about we are growing leafy greens, all of this lettuce, but astronauts are going to need to have fruit and vegetables and all of these things. We're going to have to pollinate. Peppers are a good candidate because they only have one flower that's easy to pollinate as compared to a squash or cucumbers. You have to get pollen from one flower, transfer it over to another, and it gets kind of complicated. But peppers are easy to pollinate. Also, astronauts, when they're up there, gravity pulls all the blood from your body around. When you're on Earth, it helps your body circulate blood. When you go up there, it pulls into your head, and that creates a pressure. And they feel like they have a cold. That's what they say. That they even lose their sense of taste. The pressure pulls on the back of their eyes, so they have a hard time seeing. When you have a cold, what's really nice? Vitamin C. Peppers have 5 times the amount of vitamin C that an orange does. I never knew that. Peppers are a fruit. I was a little debated about that. What else? They have creatine in them, which is good for your vision. The heat. If you're congested, eating a little bit of heat or chili or pepper helps clear that up. All of these cross the boxes that peppers should be the first fruit that we grow in space. But in that meeting room, we started to get feedback from North Carolina State. North Carolina State, the representatives there, they were like, you have to grow the Carolina Reaper. You're not going to grow this New Mexico pea. What are you guys thinking, right? Finally it turned into the LSU group. The LSU group, they grow this Bulgarian carrot for Creole sauce, and then you have to grow the Bulgarian carrot. Ultimately, we realized that we had a debate on our hands, and that we were going to have to set up some type of experiment to select which one was the right pepper. So the first thing they said was, Jacob, we're going to give you a chamber. And it's awesome, right? The Kennedy Space Center, where the rockets launched from, Artemis mission that launched was there. All these SpaceX launches and stuff, they happen twice a week. The first 3D printed rocket launch, you're in the lab and your water shakes, and you know like something's going on. But in the background, this stuff is happening. They gave me this chamber here. I set up lights like what we have on the space station, automatic irrigation to water the plants. And then the third aspect is high CO2. When you're in that small space of the space station, a lot of the astronauts, they breathe out a lot like I am right now, and it elevates the CO2 level inside of there. There are scrubbers that scrub it down, but they can't keep up. So we are probably breathing about 500 to 600 parts per million of CO2 in our room right now. On the space station, they're up at 3,000 parts per million. And now you think on the level of how a plant grows, plants actually transpire, or they breathe, like we do. They exchange gases to breathe and to grow. That's called transpiration. And when you raise the CO2 level, that changes the way that they exchange that gas. And that meant that we needed to test these peppers to see if they would grow under LED lights, and will they grow with high CO2? And the answer was, we worked with NMSU Chili Pepper Institute. We got seeds from around the world. And it turns out that some of them grow really small, and they didn't have flowers or fruit at all. There was some over here, and I know it's hard to see, but they have these really ugly leaves on them there. And that's called intumescence. It was a result of the low light. There's just not enough far red spectrum in LED lighting. There's these certain frequencies of red, like that you get when the sun sets and the sun rises, that these just didn't have, as well as UV radiation. So even though they did grow peppers, they looked ugly, they didn't look good. And the saying is for astronauts as it is for us, if it doesn't look good, we're not gonna wanna eat it, right? And like so, but there were these ones in the back there that grew big and tall. They had no care in the world, that they were in a controlled environment. They grew no matter what, and of course we all know the story, but which ones were they? New Mexico chilies. They were New Mexico chilies, and in fact they were the Sandia pepper, which is close to the Big Jim. And so then we had this thing, it was great. We decided that we were going to go New Mexico chili. We showed it scientifically. You know, everybody was in here when I showed this video, so I'll pass it. ultimately the mission was called PHO4, Plant Habitat 04. You know, they do PHO1. PHO1 was done by Lano and UNM, the first space plant growth mission that was in this box. And then I came in after that. I was like, really? You know, New Mexico was involved in space stuff more than I ever imagined. I had no idea. So anyway, you can Google NASA Space Chile. This is the fact sheet that it'll put up there. And it's really cool because there's my name. And then it explains in here one of our team members was from Espanola, New Mexico. They're very proud of it. And I thought it was really cool. And then the principal investigator wasn't me. It's actually my friend Matt Romine. He passed away a little bit after this mission, but he's the one who enabled me to be the New Mexican representative on the mission and all that stuff. So all this stuff that I've gotten to do, there's red tape with NASA that you have to go through. He cleared that tape to allow me to be here and to do these presentations and stuff. So there's a little shout out to my friend Matt. We did that experiment. We identified New Mexico peppers as the ones to go to space. And NASA said, great, go to the field and learn from the farmers how they do it. And then convert that into a spaceflight experiment. So they gave us money, they found a local guide, and they sent us from New Mexico. We flew into Albuquerque, we went up to Ocotillo and Espanola. There was Zozobra 2019, so I took them all to Zozobra. They were like, what? And what we don't notice is that our state is highly diverse, right? Those of us from the northern part of the state, we're like 7,000 to 8,000 feet, but down in Hatch, it's like 900 feet, which means growth is different. Winter hits northern New Mexico sooner than it does the south, so the peppers grow differently. So we visited farmers throughout the state. We went down to NMSU to their teaching garden, and then we ended up at Hatch Fest, where we learned how to make ristras and all that stuff. Then Hurricane Dorian came while we were here, and we couldn't fly back to Florida. They're like, you guys have to stay here. So we stayed in Las Cruces for an extra 4 days while the hurricane passed, which was really cool. Because I was like, man, it was so much fun. This was about the time that I started to think about home and what we were doing, right? We're gonna go New Mexico, Chile, in space, nobody knows. I come from a community, Espanola, northern New Mexico, and all of ours have many struggles, but we have a lot of things going on. My best friend just got shot, a lot of her got shot and died. And so these things were happening in my community. When I was doing outreach with NASA, we did outreach with classrooms, but they would only have they were only the schools that had the most resources. Mm-hmm. They were never Espanola or Moriarty or, that's what, I wanted to create something where the community can get involved. And that's where I talked to Matt, because there was this line between secret NASA stuff and then things that you can share. And we finally drew a line that NASA does not own growing a pepper plant, right? That's just been done everywhere. So I separated it and created this mission called the Space Chili Grow Pepper Plant Challenge, where I would get seeds and send them to whoever sends me an email address with their address. They send me an email with their address in it. I'd mail seeds to them, and it turned into this great old challenge kind of thing. And I guess jumping forward to it, I started it on February 16th, 2020. 3 weeks later was COVID. Everybody was suddenly at home, needing something to do at home that they could get school credit for. And it turned out that they could get seeds from me, grow a pepper plant, record some data, and it was a science and STEM experiment that they got credit for throughout COVID. Ended up mailing 75,000 seed packets around the world to all 5 continents. My friend Jess Bunchep grew them in Antarctica. She decorated her Christmas tree because they didn't have Christmas tree ornaments in Antarctica. She grew them. Her Christmas tree is famously on Facebook that you can find it, Eden ISS, and it's decorated with New Mexico chili. We sent some to the stratosphere. You guys remember the Chinese balloon? And they were shooting it down. Oh my God, who has balloons up there? What's going on? Remember, it was like a national scare. I had 3 balloons with chili seeds up there at that same time, right? I didn't want to tell anybody. I'm not a terrorist. And then at the same time, they were shooting them down with missiles, right? So I was like, man, maybe they'll shoot one of mine down. Imagine. And then if we found the seeds and they still grew, that would have been like the ultimate. But we did all this stuff. Let's talk about Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed, he did the Midwest, right? That's what he has, his fairy tale, Disney cartoons, all of that stuff. Jacob Pepperseed covered the world, man. I wonder if I have a world record. I don't know. Let's talk about it. it turned into a component to work with my community of teachers like you. We realized that we needed to have art to represent our mission because every NASA mission has a logo. You see the astronauts with the patches on them. Oh, I even have a Mesa badge with me right now, right? NASA missions have their badge and stuff. I felt that ours needed to be drawn by students in New Mexico, and so I worked with the community and an art teacher in Espanola. We got some students together, and during COVID, they worked on the mission badge. That was fun, but they used the Zia in it, and then I had this bright idea to call the Pueblo and tell them we want to get permission and stuff, and they didn't give us permission to use the Zia. 2 weeks later, Richard Branson launched his thing, and what was on the side of it? The New Mexico Zia. I was so bad. I am a native of New Mexico, and man, you let that do? Anyway, we were mad. One day when I'm not associated with NASA, when I'm not like getting funding, I'll write an editorial in the journal. I have that in my back pocket, you guys. It was cool because they didn't care. They're like, all right, we'll go back. They just drew another one. And there it is there. This was the crowning moment. NASA called me the day this happened. They're like, you drew the first fruit, but the biggest accomplishment that you did was this, the mission logo. I befriended one of the astronauts, and we were talking while she was up there, and we talked and stuff. And after one email we traded, I just sent her a picture, and I go, by the way, Megan, this is what the students made. Check it out. The next morning, when you go in the morning, you open the box to see what the astronauts did that night, and they have the pictures in there. And this was in there with a series of them where it floats away, kind of thing. That's the mission logo. She printed it out. That's a chili, and that's the Earth on the space station. So the kids had their art printed in space, man, and that's another thing that comes up on Google kind of thing. And it was way cool. And those are the types of things that I'm doing. I'm a little unprepared with materials for you today, but like whatever you're doing, whatever your interest area is, you can create stuff to inspire your kids with it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to express to here. If you wanted to do like the chili challenge, I can totally send you guys seeds. I also do 3D printing, so if you happen to have printers at your school that are just sitting there dormant, or if you'd like to set up a lab, I can help give you an equipment list of the excellent stuff to use. So 3D printing or agriculture, the point is that I'm doing this in the community. The Moon Chili Challenge, it went from this big national thing, and now I'm doing it local style. So I'm doing it kind of backwards. And that's that's the meat of what I'm sharing with you, but then there's the story. All right. So check it out. I'm really embarrassed. I was young, okay? I still am, but this is a major
responsible for sending New Mexico chili into space is now challenging you to grow a chili pepper at home. News 13's Stephanie Chavez has the story.
With the first New Mexico chili pepper expected to launch into space in September, Jacob Torres, one of the NASA researchers behind the project, is now challenging others to grow a chili pepper inside their homes.
I thought that it's really exciting that I'm a New Mexican who gets to experience this wonderful thing that's going on at NASA, but everybody at home should be able to experience it too.
Torres started the Space Chili Grow a Pepper Plant Challenge on Facebook. Teaming up with other New Mexicans, Torres is sending chili seeds all over the world.
We do have one participant in Nepal.
Those seeds come from Chimayo chili farmer Fidel Martinez.
He donated seeds to make this challenge happen.
Last summer, we told you about Espanola chili being sent to the International Space Station.
Overall, the chili from the northern, from here, from New Mexico, it can be grown anywhere.
Now, Torres is sending chili seeds all over the world, and hundreds of people are growing their own Martinez Chimayo chili plants. Torres says, while it may just seem like a fun project for the family, it's actually contributing to science.
I'm kind of recording data in the background too, because every one of these participants is a trial that I can record in my research.
And he says sending the seeds globally is changing the way people think about chili.
Somebody in Canada somewhere is having green chili with their breakfast today because they're participating in the Space Chili Challenge.
Stephanie Chavez, KOQE News 13.
The challenge is responsible for sending New Mexico.
So all of that was happening, right? And that kind of started as a volunteer thing I did on my own. I didn't have any funding for it. Really, nobody understood what I was trying to do, so I just started a Facebook group page. put my email out there and said, if you want to do the chili challenge, send me an email. And it turned into a big old thing. I created this massive database that turned into crop validation. NASA has this big thing that they won't send anything up there unless it's tested and tested and tested. And the same thing is true with crops. We have to grow it in many environments to see how it's going to do and how it's going to grow, and that's how they select which plants go up there. And so everybody who participated helped contribute to getting the chili up there because we had proof, man, you can grow this in larvae, with first graders. Jacob can grow it in his little room, you know, he can grow it in Antarctica, and so it worked out really cool. In the background with all the chili selection, finally we went to New Mexico, we came back, and when I wasn't doing Chili Challenge, when I was actually getting paid, I was making these boxes. I'm an engineer, I develop and create things, I prototype, rapid prototyping. I have been using 3D printing a lot, but I've done a lot of things. I'm also working in the machine shop at UNM. I got a teaching assistantship, which I was doing all morning this morning. I was talking to you guys, and then I have another lab this afternoon. And I know you all know that really well. And that's really cool, because usually engineers get their degree, they never go back to the shop again, but I love it. I love that's what I do. So anyway, I would build these boxes, pack it with growth media and fertilizer, do an experiment, set up the lights and all that. They wouldn't grow, something would go bad. I'd say, okay, I'd do it again until I had it. And I finally did. I took it to NASA and I was like, check it out, you guys. I got data, we got a full grow out. We can get chili, green chili at day 80. We can get red chili at day 120. And that, you know, they were like, awesome, cool. So we packaged it up and put it on a rocket, a SpaceX rocket. And instead of me watching the water on my table, I was as close as I could get watching it go up. And of course, you know, every New Mexican has a New Mexico flag in your back pocket right now. Right? That day I was with the New Mexico flag, all over the place, it was so awesome. And then it went up. Now think, the astronauts, they're up there, their job is to be scientists and do experiments. So they do all day. They get all kinds of stuff, materials, this, whatever. Rarely do they like take on an experiment with excitement, but they did. If anybody seen the movie Martian, The Martian? A few of you seen the movie The Martian? Good, cool. Besides growing potatoes with his poop in Martian soil to keep himself going, another fun thing he did was he talked about maritime law and what the law applies in space or when you're away from Earth. And it's maritime law, like you're in the ocean. That's the international law that applies. And if you're doing things that goes against the mission, you're officially a pirate. And if you're a pirate, you can designate yourself anything you want. And our astronauts were opening the door and doing anything they wanted with the peppers because they just wanted to see them. They say that it smells really bad up there because there's a lot of people. If you can open it up and have that smell of peppers and stuff. So they were opening it, they were going against our rules. So they designated themselves Hatchtronauts. We woke up one morning and they sent us a message, Hatchtronauts. And I was like, what? Now, why did I think of that? Kayla Barron put it on her Facebook page. She has this Facebook page while she was up on doing her time up there. And she wrote it out, #Hatchtronauts. We were like, oh my God, so cool. They had fun. They opened the door. They played Red Hot Chili Peppers for them. They finally grew them. I did the CNN interview, my CNN interview, Jacob, what do you want from this mission? I was like, I'd love for them to ask the skate question, red or green. Because if they ask that means they grew green and red chili, right? That's success. Sure enough, they asked red or green, they harvested them, and then Megan MacArthur printed that out for us. If you ever go to Johnson Space Center, to the Visitor Center, they have that memorialized on the wall, that logo and stuff. And I'm saying they do thousands of experiments all the time, and very few have attention like that. So it was cool because we had astronaut buy-in, and they just had a great time while they were doing it. This goes into the next part. I am an emotional guy, you guys can probably tell, but I started thinking about my fate in my life while I was there. I went in for this 10-week internship. I found my dream team, and it ultimately turned into 2,000 some days, right? I did so good that they offered me another internship. I did another 16 weeks, and at the end of that, they had a job for me. Except it was as a scientist. I'm an engineer, but I had to accept as a scientist, and that's a scientist. I have to live with that. You know? But, and it was great because not only did we grow the first peppered, but we did 17 NASA space biology experiments as a whole list of them in 2 plant growth systems. We're working towards the moon. We just got funded with a new system called LEAF, where we'll grow the first plants on the moon. And I am working I would love the first fruit to be New Mexico chili on the moon. And that's what this aspect of the Moon Chili Challenge is. That's what we're doing now. If your students grow a plant, it goes towards this database, and then I'm gonna apply for funding to get a lunar mission, and then we all go. Kind of thing. But in all of that, I was like, how is it me that's here? There are like some really amazing New Mexicans, really smart people. How is it me all the way at Kennedy Space Center? You know, I saw the first moon launch since the 50s. I saw them stack it. I was in the, how did I get to be there? I started to realize that it was probably because I needed to represent our traditions, that was my job. I had to make sure that they're using our cultivar, that they use it correctly. And number 1, that's chili with an E, all right? Fight with a bunch of academics about that. It's fun. It's almost like the Illuminati Farolito thing. So you guys know that happens every year. Illuminati Farolito. Man, well, same thing with chili with an I. Well, chili with an I is the chili. Yeah, but that's Texas chili with meat and stuff, Well, chili with an E is the country. Yes, chili with an E is the country. But finally, it took me a while. It's Chile. Spanish. Ding. Drop the mic. It took me a few days though to get to it. I was like, oh, that's why Chile. Red or green. They have to harvest it red or green. They would have did one harvest, cut the plants, and called it over. But no, New Mexico traditions is red or green. That's our thing. So we did a harvest at day 80. We intended to do one at day 120, but they grew very differently up there. We ended up taking 137 days, which is a world record. We're in the World Guinness Book of Records in 2021 for doing the longest plant growth experiment in history. And then we've also grown the most amount of food to eat. Someone's gonna break that soon, I'm sure. I wanted to make sure that New Mexico was included. New Mexico art, you guys saw that. That worked together, it worked out good. And then, it's my job to go out and share this with everybody. So they can say, hey, New Mexico did this, you guys can do it too, kind of thing. So yeah, anyway, here is me from the lab, all right?
My name is Jacob Torres, and I engineer hardware that grows plants in space. One of the biggest things that I work on is developing irrigation systems that grow crops in microgravity. I use 3D printing, rapid prototyping to make hardware that allows plants to grow not only here on Earth or in our lab, but also on the International Space Station. NASA's talking about going to the moon. We want to go to Mars, but food is a big concern for our crew. So growing crops, space plant biology is a vital aspect to these long duration missions that NASA's going to do in the future. But also, this is an opportunity for us to try new technologies and new methods to growing crops in controlled environments. A controlled environment, you can grow a plant year-round, no matter what the weather is. And so this work that we're doing, the hardware that we're building, can be applied for these deep space missions, but also can be used here on Earth for people and farmers to grow plants wherever they are. I come from a farming community. I was raised to grow plants and be a plant person, but I also always wanted to be an engineer. I told my mom since I was young, Mom, I want to be an engineer. And I have found a place with space biology that encompasses all of the things that I love. I get to build and design things that have never been done before. That is one of the most exciting things. It was an untraditional path for me to get where I am, but it really is never too late to start working towards your dreams. NASA has many aspects to it, from launching rockets to growing plants and everything in between. Every type of skill is needed within NASA, and there's a place for you, and you can do what I've done as well. Follow your dreams.
When I'm visiting your students, this is the gangsterest part of it all. Because there's me when I'm your age. I was born in Santa Fe. I'm from Espanola, right? And it's like, boom, they're like, I'm having a good time with this video. I talked about it's an untraditional path. I didn't start college till I was 27. I might be older than half of you in here. Yeah, I look older than I really am. But and so that means, you know, sometimes students, when they graduate, they're not ready for college afterwards, right afterwards, and that's okay. You know, for me, I had to go work out in the field. I had to clean some dish pits, dig some ditches, do some construction, work in Las Vegas at 120 degrees before I was like, I gotta go to college. Unless I go to school, I'm gonna do this forever, man. That's when my body was all breaking and everything. So I moved home with mom at 26, 27. I got a job at the Santa Fe Opera for one season, and I built some stuff, and I knew that I wanted to do engineering. I started at Northern New Mexico College in Espanola. They had automotive technology. The lowrider capital had an automotive program, right? They don't have one anymore. It's crazy. And then they had renewable energies. So those were my two-year degrees. That was my intention. I was going to stop. I promise. I had no intention of going to school more than those 2 years. I was like, I'll build solar panels in Taos or in Santa Fe. You know, it'll be Ocotillo. There's nicer houses there. I figured that I could put up PV systems and stuff. That was my only intention. But 2 weeks later, I got a letter. It was a big letter with shiny red on it from NMSU. And they're like, Jacob, we saw that you graduated. If you come over here, we'll give you the lottery scholarship and pay for your tuition and fees and stuff. I was like, I gotta do that. Yeah. So when I went down there and I went to check out the different departments, the one department, the mechanical engineering department, was doing the green chili destemmer. And this thing was a huge box that fit on the back of the semi bed, and there was all these great people on it. I was like, I want to do that, and that's why I did that department. It was under some great people, under a great time, and they taught me well. They are still my mentors to this day. I still, like, before I started this semester at UNM, I drove down to Las Cruces to tell them my plan, and they were like, okay, Jacob, this is what you need to do, because I was not going to teach, but you know, you have to earn respect. It doesn't matter if you're Jacob Torres, the space chili guy. You can show up. You can't show up anywhere with New Mexico and like get respect. You have to earn it. And I thought I would just get it given to me. Nobody cared. So I decided that if I teach for the university, that I'll get to meet some of the facility, some of the faculty, and then we'll become friends that way. You know, I'll show that I can work. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. But untraditional path, I didn't start till later, and I'm still working on it. These are the two plant growth systems. One of them is veggie. All it is a LED light, and you set up some growth media or a way to grow plants underneath. They pull up these bags around so stuff doesn't float away while the astronauts are working. They call it the astronaut garden. One of the most famous ones is Scott Kelly. Scott Kelly grew the first zinnias on it. It was a failed experiment for us. So Commander Kelly messaged us and asked us if he could take over to bring them back. He's like, I think I can save them. Will you guys let us do it? We were like, yes, dude, please. So yes, Commander Kelly took command of one of our experiments. It was awesome. But we've grown a lot of lettuce and all kinds of stuff. And then APH is what we grew the chilies in. It's a refrigerator. You can control temperature, humidity. It's automated, 183 sensors. It's all technical. You can control it from a computer in our lab and water the plants and do all that stuff. And then the astronauts open the door, check in on it, do harvests, collect data, all that stuff. We have to grow all these crops. We ultimately are feeding the astronauts, but right now we're just accomplishing a lot of science. We're learning how to grow them, and then we're doing what happens when you grow a plant here compared to Earth. There's all this science happening. But our point is to grow crops, and I'm here. Leafy greens, tomatoes, peppers, radish. This is all we've done, right? That's not that much. We still have all of that to go. How would you grow rice and harvest it in space without it floating everywhere? How would you grow flour and turn it into a powder in microgravity? How would you pollinate a cucumber, one pollen, one flower to another? We have all these challenges, and that's why I tell the kids, I may get here before I'm like 60 years old and I have to retire. And some of them are going to have to step up, and I would love it to be some of our kids. You know, I'm from New Mexico. I met Jacob Pepperseed once upon a time, and now I'm growing apples or something, right? It's always asked, what would you grow? If you could grow anything, what would you grow? That's always a fun one. But it's not just Jacob. There's a whole team that makes it happen. I just have my part and my skills. They were 3 times as hot. And we know now it's the stress of microgravity. They had never grown without gravity before. They're just like, oh my gosh, you know, they get really hot. So that was the deal with them. The space station, of course, it's a football field long. It's 100 yards, and everybody lives inside of these. You guys have probably heard about the most recent Boeing space capsule, it's docked just like this, it's just stuck there, kind of thing. And then the crew is working in these individual quarters. There's the Japanese quarters, the European Space Union, the American quarters, they all kind of stick to themselves. The Russian quarters and all that stuff. When I first started, we were working really well with, with Russia and stuff. And then over the last couple of years, our communications have completely cut. But I used to always say that it was gonna be the researchers who would hold the peace, but they don't allow us to talk anymore, kind of thing, which is kind of a sad thing. I always want to work with other countries. It was like awesome. There they are when they packed the box. But there's Megan MacArthur. She made the first green chili taco. It's floating there. The cool thing about that was that day the toilet broke on the space station. So Stephen Colbert, right? I don't know if anyone knows Stephen Colbert, late night show. And he does this thing about science and stuff, and that night he just first taco madness, right? It was cool, they did this whole chili thing, it was crazy. And apparently the astronauts broke the bathroom after harvesting the first hatch peppers on the space station. And they came at the chilies, they had to go to the bathroom so bad that they broke it and stuff. But no, it was broken before. They drew straws to see who was gonna work on the bathroom and who was gonna do the chili harvest. And poor Megan drew the short straw. She spent the day fixing the toilet while they did the harvest, but she was the one to come get the chilies that night and make the first green chili taco. The reason her and I talked was because she wanted to call me and tell me that her husband is from Las Cruces, and her husband's dad is Roy Nakayama. Roy Nakayama is one of the chili kings, Fabian Garcia, Roy Nakayama. This is where the Erie traditional stuff comes in, right? Like, oh, are you serious? But Roy Nakayama, Fabian Garcia, they developed the hatch peppers, the New Mexico peppers as we know them, from the 1940s until the 1970s. Roy Nakayama went to Ocotillo, which is near Espanola, the ag extension. He developed this pepper called Espanola Improved, where he got the traditional Espanola pepper, and then he got the hatch pepper and made a hybrid to grow in Albuquerque. That was his intention, and they kind of just had it there for a long time. But when we got to doing our mission, when we were growing hatch, it was taking forever. NASA wasn't going to give us 140 or 150 days, and they're like, you need to take some time off of it, or we need to not do a red chili harvest. That's not going to work. Can we find a pepper that grows faster? And so we started searching around. I got that Espanola Improved because it has a higher elevation. Winter should come sooner. It should get hot sooner. And that's what happened. We went with that Espanola Improved because it grew 20 days faster, kind of thing. And so anyway, it was pretty crazy because Roy Nakayama is the one who developed that at Ocotillo. And then like 40 years later, we got it and grew it. And then Megan MacArthur, who was on space, it was her husband's uncle or dad that did it. It was just this huge tie that all New Mexico, like it's been working since a long time ago. This has been coming for a long time. All right, now I'm gonna wrap it up. But all during that mission, what we're doing, I'm doing CNN, we're growing plants in space, we're stressing out. We wrote the obituary for the chilies because they didn't grow by 120 days. NASA was gonna cut us off because we only had money for 120 days, right? It's all dollars and cents. They ultimately gave us more time, 17 more days to get red. And so we did that, we got it going, but in the background at night, I was filling envelopes and writing them to everybody who would send me an email. I would get like 30 a day. I was sending them just like crazy. And that's what I would do. Everybody would get a couple stickers, a Martinez Chimayo bag with some seeds, and we went around the world, to Japan, Australia. This is from, I was so proud to work with the Navajo Nation, who did a lot of growth during that. This is from the NASA director at the time. He sent me, that certificate for creating this activity during COVID that got people busy, and he's like, that's an example of NASA right there. And then I got NASA funded, and I was like, dude, I started this bootleg thing, and then I got NASA funding, and I taught from the lab, and it was like, oh, totally, totally awesome. It was really cool. We had fun. But times change. We accomplished that mission. Now it's time for a new one. We have a new generation. Let's do something new. Let's do something cool. Let's get our kids involved, and let's go chili on the moon together, right? And so I'll give you guys my email. You can send me an email. I'm also doing Jacob Pepperseed visits. I have a kid version of this, where if I have the time available, I'll go to your classroom and present. If you're too far, I can totally zoom in. It's even better when you zoom in because they don't see me flying around all over the place and stuff. and I'm a little bit more controlled. But I am doing this chili challenge now. We've been doing them in a lot of elementaries, but also you can talk to the Espanola Mesa teachers. They grew with me last year, and they're co-authors of the publication with me this year, which is really cool. We're doing this conference in Puerto Rico in front of all kinds of NASA people. Yeah, so that's kind of the deal. I know that I gave you guys too much. Oh, this is, you guys can think of questions too. Remember I was telling you about Johnson Space Center and the mission logo? I didn't know it was there. I did start working on it before I left. Ultimately, I felt like I had been there for 5 years, 5.5 years. Always wanted to do my PhD, and I'm not getting any younger. So I left my role to come here, and I'm trying to do it as my PhD and stuff. But I started to work on this, I didn't see it. I went to speak to a group of educators just like you. They're called SEAS. There's a lot of NASA STEM opportunities for educators where they fund you and then send you off for training like at a space center and all kinds of stuff. And I can help you guys with some of those too. But anyway, while we were there, my teachers and everyone, it was really exciting. Because that's my mission right there. Those are the children. They're on this big screen. They weren't supposed to open the box, but there she is opening the box, right? And she's like, come check it out. They're not supposed to do that. That's why they were pirates. And those are the children going, there's my hand, this is inside of this airplane, you know? And then there's the picture there. It was huge. After that, all the teachers were posting it on Facebook with the selfie next to it, you know? And I was like, yeah, totally dope. This is how water works in space. And I know it's probably really small, but it's a big part of what I do. I build things that control fluids so it can release it in a certain way, like allowing a plant to grow. But there are these challenges with the way it behaves. Air and water separate. You know, here they dissolve together. In space, they don't. And it creates these really big problems in how they work. But see how the air bubbles inside of it? They have a lot of fun doing that. But we're doing all these great things. It's all kinds of fun. If I can go visit your class, or if you would like some chili seeds, if you have some ideas that you want to work on. Again, I'm really excited about 3D printing. So if you had thought about writing a grant proposal or something to get a 3D printer lab at your school, I can totally help you with equipment. And I'm good to show somebody how to use it so they can keep teaching it, kind of thing. So just reach out. I'll go back to the page that has my email address. Yeah, thank you too. And if I ever see you again, I owe you all a cookie cutter, a biscuit cookie cutter. I just got so immersed with teaching class that I forgot that I had to bring all this stuff. But thank you. Please ask questions.
So what do the kids do for the Moon Chili Challenge?
All they have to do is grow a pepper plant. They can grow it in a sunny window. They can get a plant growth light and grow it. All they have to do is grow it inside.
Okay.
So if you have if in your class,
Yeah.
we've just given a little pot and soil and a light to grow it in your class.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to have a sunny window, especially in the winter, as the sun comes down, you can start growing with. All you have to do is grow a plant, take a picture of it with a ruler in it at least, and that turns into a data point. As long as you have a ruler in there, I can use this software called ImageJ to take horticulture measurements of it. That's the fundamental requirement. That's, for like the elementary groups or whatever, anybody really. But if you wanted to step it up and want to do a real experiment for your kids, then I can ask you for horticultural measurements, like how tall is it, how wide is it, how many peppers did you get, how much did they weigh? And that's like the next level of collecting data. But in the end, I want to make it as simple so I can at least get pictures. But if you want to get more involved, just let me know, because there's more that you can do. And I do throw in the 3D printing part of it, because some places are implementing 3D printing, and if you just have any interest in that, we can 3D print a plant growth box, and then grow a plant in it. Or build a chamber, that's another thing. If you build a chamber to grow the plants in, those type of things. But bottom line is just grow a plant, take a picture of it, no matter how far you get, send it to me, you did the chili challenge, that writes your name in Moon Chili Research.
Nice. Sign me up. So Jacob, did you ever taste the chili from up there?
No, we didn't. They grew about 33 peppers, red and green. They got to eat half. That was the deal. They got to eat half. They wrapped up the other half in foil and put them in 80 below freezer. And unfortunately, when we wrote the grant, you have to write everything out and think about it in advance. It's really difficult when you're doing something that's never been done before. And I didn't have the foresight to write, save the seeds.
Oh.
So I didn't get seeds either. They got those peppers, they mashed them up into like a fine powder, and then they did RNA sequencing, nutrient analysis. They did all of this stuff, man. Yeah, and they're still doing research on it to this day. Like, there's all this stuff. Jacob, you've been cited on this publication, I don't even know anymore. It's pretty cool. But no, I didn't. But the ones in the lab, yes. The ones that we grew here on Earth, I did get to eat. And again, I said that even when they did start getting hot, they were not New Mexico chili. They didn't taste the way that our chili tastes.
And we don't believe
Yeah, and I felt like that was my job. Like, I could have just shut up and like not said anything, but they were so proud about it. And I was like, you know what, guys, just in case somebody else happens to taste it, let me be the first one to say that's not exactly right. Hey, thank you for sparing us sitting through all this. I'm here for a few more minutes.